ADHD Rewired, episode 469. This is the podcast for those of us with really good intentions and a slightly wandering attention. I'm Eric Tivers. I'm a licensed clinical social worker by training and a coach by design. I'm your host, and I have ADHD. ADHD Rewired is more than just a podcast. We are a community. We are wired for connection, and you are not alone. Go to ADHDrewired.com to learn how you can join us in our free and secret Facebook group. Get additional resources for every episode, including links to any resources we mention on today's show. You can support us on Patreon, sign up for our email newsletter. You can request podcast postcards to distribute to your clients and support groups. Learn all about our award-winning coaching and accountability groups. You can co-work with us in our Adult Study Hall virtual membership community. You can do all of these things by going to our website at ADHDrewired.com. We know that starting is the hardest part, so let's get started. Welcome back to another episode of ADHD Rewired. We are doing something today that we have not actually done in a while, and we are doing a mastermind today. And I am actually really excited to do this because we have ADHD Rewired coaches Kat Hoyer and Kristin Marts, who are going to be helping us with this mastermind. And in the hot seat today, we have Janelle Augustin, who I'm just going to let her introduce herself, and then we are going to get right into this.
Hello, my name is Janelle. I was born in Jamaica, but I grew up in South Florida and just recently moved to Tampa. So I'm in a brand new space. I was recently diagnosed with ADHD, recently to me. I'm 34 and I was diagnosed at 32. It's been quite the journey. And not long after diagnosis, I found ARC and it changed my life. I found the self-awareness that I needed to get to learn how to be able to advocate for myself, learn what I needed to advocate for myself. And it has been a life-changing process.
Awesome. And just in case you're a new listener, ARC is ADHD Rewired Coaching. So Janelle, when were you in ARC?
ARC 27. So this was January of 2022.
Okay. And now you this is your second time as one of our peer mentor admins, right?
Yes, that is correct. I admin with Kristin for ARC 30.
And then Kristin was telling me, you got to see Janelle. She's fantastic as an admin. And then I got lucky to get Janelle as an admin this season. And she was not wrong. So you also have a business where you do fried ice cream and like take fried ice cream to the next level. Where, like, if you've had fried ice cream, you have not had fried ice cream like this.
No, that is right. So I have a business called Nelly's Creamery, which was one of those rabbit hole projects, right? I love to cook and I like to try new things. I mean, surprise, surprise. And it was one of those things that I tried at a restaurant. And I was like, I have to figure out how to make it at home. And after many failed attempts, I came up with, it was a banana cake and I put vanilla ice cream and wrapped it up inside, then battered it and fried it. And it blew my mind. So I was like, okay, how many other things can I wrap ice cream around and it'll be delicious? And turns out a lot of things. Our best-selling flavor was Know What I Mean. I have super funny names, like pop culture names. So like Know What I Mean, Cookies and Cream, based off of that song, like Peaches and Cream. Anyway, so it's a chocolate chip cookie wrapped around cookies and cream ice cream, then battered and fried. So the outside is crunchy. Then you get that melty chocolate chip cookie, and then you hit the center and it is cold, creamy ice cream. I love mixtures of temperatures. So like it hits all the sensory things.
I'm like feeling all the sensory things right now as you're describing that.
Yes. So it is my baby. And it is one of the things that we're going to talk about today because it's one of the things that it gives me anxiety because, you know, running a business is different than just making ice cream, but it is something that I absolutely love and I wish for the whole world to try. And that is my goal, is to ship it all over the world. So stay tuned.
Awesome. Okay. So, Janelle, let's get into it. So, what we're going to do is this is sort of an expanded version of what we kind of do in our coaching groups. So, in our coaching groups, um, 4 members of a team, they take turns doing these masterminds, and they go about 25 to 30 minutes. We're going to probably go a little bit longer than that. Because we can. So we did ask Janelle to complete our mastermind planning page. So I'm just going to kind of summarize this. Unless, Janelle, do you want to actually do a quick summarization?
Sure.
All right. So the first question that is on the mastermind planning page is the ADHD-related issue I want to mastermind is
Completing tasks and projects. So I am pretty good at that initial push that I want to do this. I have the energy. I'm going to do it. And I get through at some point and then I have to stop. If I have to stop for whatever reason, I have a hard time coming back. So coming back and finishing projects is one of the things that just kind of makes me feel like I leave loose ends everywhere. It adds to the feeling of anxiety that there's something I didn't finish. And if I have to encounter that area again that I didn't finish, it just kind of brings the wave of shame.
okay. And so you're looking for ideas, tools, strategies, perspectives, questions. We also ask on these worksheets if you could only ask one question to help you with this, what would that be?
It would be, how are you managing multi-step projects or multi-day tasks? And what do you use to remind yourself to go back to it?
Okay. And then if you could ask that secondary question, what would that be?
What are some prompts I can ask myself in the moment to encourage me to return to a project?
Okay. So when we're doing our masterminds in our coaching groups, we always want to start with sort of clarifying questions. So I want to ask Kat and Kristin, do you have clarifying questions?
Well, I think I'm understanding what you're looking for. And I really don't think there's anything that I want to clarify, like the specifics of what you're looking for. I think my clarifying question has to do with getting a little bit deeper. So, Kat, do you have anything that's like clarifying like this?
No, I would say what you wrote makes it really easy for us to understand what it is that you're looking for. And I think the fact that I can relate to it also helps me understand it. The only question I would have was there was a part where you ask about organizing and making your home more ADHD friendly.
Mhm.
Was that an additional project? Because I know you mentioned gardening, some of the things around work. Was that an additional project that you're looking to kind of tie up those loose ends?
Yes, it's an
Okay.
additional area. Well,
Okay.
that statement, making my home ADHD more ADHD friendly, has a couple different projects, each different area. So anytime I start something, chances are I'm not finished and going back to it. So yeah, that is an additional area.
That was it. Other than that, I'm
That
ready to dig in too.
that was a great clarifying question because I think because I know Janelle, I made that assumption, but I think it also helped give a little more clarity to what I was thinking about. So thank you. Good one.
No.
So I know the finishing of stuff is a sort of the overall theme. You did mention that so for some of the specifics around your business, you talk about writing manuals, email follow-ups, improvement projects, and then you mentioned for your home that you have things that you've purchased that have been sitting in your home unused. I relate to that a lot, and so every time you encounter one of these areas of unfinished stuff, it just feels really frustrating.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any of these areas or domains that feel more pressing right now?
Um, I would say my business, because it's the beginning of the year, so it's tax time, it's wrapping up old business, getting into new business, and getting into new business is wrapping up old business. So yeah.
Can I ask a question around that?
Mhm.
Is that the smallest domino based on what you presented us with in the document? And in other words, I maybe want to clarify for new listeners. It's the idea of what is the thing you can do first that will help knock down some of the other barriers and hurdles that you are experiencing in other areas that may seem not related, but when you look at it this way, can be related.
Yeah. So you mean, is my business the smallest domino, you mean, or the
Right.
task that I have
Based
in
on
mind?
all the things that you gave us, is
Mhm.
that actually the smallest domino if you were to look at it that way?
Probably not.
What would you think might be smaller?
It's a good question. I'm not sure. I have to think about that one.
Okay. That's not unusual in a mastermind, is to get a question and say, oh, so I need to note that and keep that
Yeah.
percolating, simmering, figuring that one out.
And some of the best masterminds that we've had actually it's like putting the onion peeler in like rapid mode, because like the issue that often people come to a mastermind with is often like not the actual issue. And it's through this process where these discoveries of like, oh, this is the actual issue. So we'll see where this goes.
Yeah, because I mean, you just had me think of something when you were talking that I mean, my business necessarily isn't the smallest domino. It's the issue, but it's not the smallest domino. So I'm thinking more maybe a process that I maybe need to work on. That just popped in my head. So I'll hold on to that.
This seems like a good place for us to take a quick break. We will be right back. Support for ADHD Rewired comes from ARC. ARC is ADHD Rewired Coaching. Learn more about our intensive online coaching and accountability groups and how you can join us for our next spring registration event this week on Thursday, February 23rd at 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern by going to coachingrewired.com and adding your name to our interest list. This week is the final week where you'll be able to take advantage of our anti-procrastination promotion to get $500 off the cost of coaching when you select sections with ADHD Rewired coaches Kat Hoyer and Kristin Marts. The deadline to submit all pre-registration submissions is 11:59 p.m. the day before our registration events, so don't wait. That's coachingrewired.com to get started. Our coaching community provides a space where you can learn different skills for ADHD management, openly share our struggles without fear of judgment, and continue practicing those skills with the encouragement of others who are more similar to us than we thought. So if you're just on the edge of your decision to join our coaching groups, I'd like to encourage you to listen to episode 400, where more of our alumni members share their experiences, their success stories, and the valuable lessons they learned during their seasons of coaching groups. It is so heartwarming to hear others discover their self-worth, to see others owning their skills, lift each other up, and really find out what they're made of. Go to coachingrewired.com to start your pre-registration process so you can join us this week on Thursday, February 23rd at 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. And again, this is the last time for the spring sessions that you can get $500 off when you join sections with coaches Kristin Marts or Kat Hoyer. And if you are listening to this after that date, go to coachingrewired.com to get the most up-to-date information. Come learn with us. Come grow with us. Growth happens here at coachingrewired.com. That's coachingrewired.com. Can't get enough of ADHD-related content? The ADHD Rewired Podcast Network has you covered. Go to ADHDrewired.com/podcast network, where you can check out all of our other shows. And if that's still not enough for you and you want to pick our brains, then we invite you to join us every second Tuesday of the month on Zoom, where we host a live Q&A to answer your ADHD-related questions. And next month, we will hopefully be joined by a special guest that I will tell you about next week. I'm just waiting for confirmation from this person, but it will be someone that you might know them. All right, so go to ADHDrewired.com/events to register to join us every second Tuesday of the month. Join me, Brendan Mahan from ADHD Essentials, Will Kerr from Hacking Your ADHD, MJ Siemens from the ADHD Diversified podcast, and our amazing ADHD Rewired coaches, Kat Hoyer and Kristin Marts, to get tips and tricks to your ADHD-related questions. And if you love what you're hearing on the show, then don't forget to subscribe to this podcast in your favorite podcast player, or go to ADHDrewired.com/podcast, where you can also find our show notes and links to all the resources that we mention in each episode. This week, we're doing something a little bit different. We'll be releasing a part 2 of today's episode tomorrow as we continue our mastermind sessions with coaches Kat Hoyer, Kristin Marts, and coaching group alumni member Janelle A. If this podcast has made you feel more seen and understood, and you're subscribed, but you haven't yet had a chance to leave us a rating and review, we would really appreciate it if you could. Your reviews help us get in front front of more ears who just might need to hear our stories so that they can feel less alone too. Find everything ADHD Rewired by going to ADHD-rewired.com. And if you like this episode, share it with someone you know. That's ADHD-rewired.com. Thanks for listening. In your write-up, you mentioned about writing manuals. Can you actually talk a little bit more about that?
So being able to duplicate what anybody does, I have to write it down step by step, how to make an item, how to store an item, how to set up and break down, things like that. So, I've started that project, wrote the things down, but didn't really put it in a place where kind of didn't implement it. I wrote it down, I put it in a folder, but didn't put it in a place where it'll be easy for everybody to see, to be able to use it. There was stuff that I still didn't write up as a manual. And then I realized, now that I'm talking about it, I probably didn't write down all of the places that I needed manuals for. So that's probably leading to that feeling of that it was never done, because I don't know what done is. Oh, man. What is done?
A 4-letter word.
That's all I know. That's all I know.
So this question maybe leads into, so this question is about, how do you visualize a project, and a project could even turn into a system. How do you visualize that before you get started?
A lot of the times I work backwards. I start with where I want to be and then kind of try and break down the steps before that. Or I try to walk through it step by step, like actually physically like close my eyes and put myself in that area and walk through it. But I don't necessarily think of, I guess, the setup. I think of what it would look like done.
So let me spit in your soup for a minute, borrowing from Adlerian perspectives. You just previously said, I don't know what done looks like.
Right.
And then you shared with us, I start with done.
I start with done. Right. Well, I guess so. Let me back it up. So, in reference to that example of manuals, right? I guess I don't know how many manuals I need to write because I didn't start with that done. But if I say I need to write a manual for closing duties, I close my eyes and I walk through my head of, okay, this needs to be clean, kind of like a checklist. But I didn't think of as the project as a whole. So maybe it's when I get into the big projects and then little projects and then littler projects. Yeah.
Yeah, that whole setup, action, cleanup. And it sounds like your done is just the pieces of the action inside of it that you're able to see. And it's actually the activity that you're trying to do is write a manual, not just go through the steps and write it down.
Kat, go ahead.
I actually forgot it right after I raised my hand. I've been writing everything down, and then Kristin said something, and I'm like, oh, I want to ask about that. So it had to do with the manual. It had, and you said closing duties. So I guess my question is, with any of these projects, but since we're talking about the manual, we'll focus on that. Do you have, I have two questions on this. Do you have a master list of what you would like to accomplish start to finish? Okay. So you're in.
No.
Yeah. Okay.
No, I did not.
So, and for listeners, she was shaking her head and had a nice smile on her face while she was saying that. So, that would be one suggestion, potentially writing down, all of the, like a brain dump of what are all of these processes. And then when you do the closing duties, start to finish, like, okay, I've moved forward on part of that. My other question is, when you work on any of these things, what does that look like in terms of, is it time blocked? Like, how do you manage your time while doing these projects?
I've been doing time blocks more recently, but a lot of the time it's like, there's a word I'm looking for that's kind of like catching the train as it's leaving with my energy. Where it's like, okay, I want to do this thing. I know I have 2 hours. I'm going to try and cram as much of it in 2 hours as I can. And that's about as far as it goes.
What would it be like for you to plan 2 hours and to write down the steps that you want to do in those 2 hours and stick only to that? Even if you win back some time at the end, even if you finish those steps in an hour and a half and you win back 30 minutes. Because I think I might be hearing a managing energy. issue also?
I fear that I might get there's two things I think of when I think of that. There's one where I feel like I might get stuck on writing down the steps because I have done that, where I feel like I will get stuck in analysis paralysis of what steps to do when and who, what, where, and why. And so that's kind of leads to the feeling of just jumping right in. And then two, I have a hard time looking back at those steps. I write them down and go do the thing and say, oh yeah, I'll remember what the next step is.
Do you consider part of the process that you actually need to test your process so that as a motivator to actually go back to look at what you wrote?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So you do that.
I do that. If I remember, to be honest, and that is probably one of the things that, no, I take that back. I do that because that is the intention of it, is to be able to have somebody who has never done it to be able to go through each one of those steps and have the same outcome as if somebody who has done it before 100 times before have the same outcome.
Kat, I see that your hand is still up. I want to just encourage you to jump in when you got a question.
Okay. So, two questions on that then, with writing down the steps. And I know you said that you feel like you might get hung up on that. It might take a long time. One of the questions I had was, how would it feel to maybe write what are the first 3 steps and do those? And then what are the next 3 steps and do those? Because I can procrasti-plan like nobody's business. So that's where like doing what I'm going to do now and the 2 next things can be helpful. So I wonder about that. The other thing I wonder is what it would be like to maybe have a body, like an actual body double with you, where you're saying, you're doing the task while they're there. So especially if you want somebody to be able to do it with you, if it would be helpful to have a body double during that process.
Yes to both. For the first of doing the 3 steps, I like that idea. So that I write down 3 steps, just do that, and then write down the next 3 steps. I like that.
The body double sort of leans into the next question I have for you. Could you consider other ways of capturing this information rather than it be sitting down and writing out the steps? Would you like for me to throw out there the things I thought of?
Yeah.
Audio recording while you're doing it, a video of you doing it.
Well, yes, a video would work. And I think that was like immediately my analysis paralysis kind of thing. Like, no, the video would be too long, but then I could just speed it up. I mean,
Well, and then that's a whole nother step then of you're doing the initial step of that process. You do want to capture it into a manual. Is this something that could be delegated?
yes. I mean, I guess I think the initial round could be maybe like a first draft could be delegated. Yes. Yes.
Where would you go to do that?
Well, right now, so because I moved, I'd have to move the business. And so the person I had, I don't have anymore. So right now it'd have to be me. Back then, I probably would have been able to delegate it in that way. But right now it'd have to be me. Well, it doesn't have to be me, but I don't know where I have to go yet.
Yeah, because it sounded like you immediately went to the person I used to use, and then it was like, wait,
Wait, so there's a person that you used to use that has this knowledge.
Um, has some of it, yes.
Okay. Do you think that you could ask them to put something together? Or do you think that'd be worth like the investment in time and money to ask this person to help build some of these processes?
Yeah.
That was not convincing. All right. So because when we're doing business, often business solutions are found not by the how, but the who. How are you going to find the who?
How am I going to find the who? I am going to reach out to my
Okay.
A team. So, what somebody there just recently hired an assistant. So, I think I'd bounce some ideas off of them. I will, I would look up somebody who could help me with process writing because I think the manuals aren't just they're manual. They're all considered manuals to me. I was thinking of like different, like recipe writing, and they're similar in that sense, in that it's just
That's your intellectual
it's just
property
a
of the
process
business,
that we're writing.
right?
Yeah.
Can I ask, do you belong to any professional organizations like within your area, like the Chamber of Commerce or SCORE or any type of incubator type business things that
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say that might have some resources to be able to refer you to.
That's a good idea. That's a good first domino.
Thinking along those lines, is there anyone else out there who you know who does a similar business, like restaurant type things that maybe you could be a mentor or
Yes.
what would your next step be?
To send them a message or a phone call to say, hey,
Yeah.
help.
So, Janelle, let me ask you this, and we're going to take a quick break. Writing of the manuals, right? So, in so many areas of business, like our business is that which is documented in the processes, right? Otherwise, we just have a sort of a craft that we've kind of monetized, but I wouldn't call that a business, right? A business means, oh, I have these processes. I can have somebody, plug somebody into this and they can follow these directions and run with it.
Mm-hmm.
What is your why for writing these manuals or having these manuals written?
So that I can give it to somebody else to run with it. I don't want to do the stuff anymore. I don't want to be the person every day doing everything. I was tired of it. I burnt myself out. Bad burnout, to the point where I was afraid of committing to new things, even committing to the same things. So yeah.
So if you were to be able to get to whatever done is to you, if you could get to done, what would that free you up to do?
It would free me up to grow my business, and to take it to other places, locations, people, all of that.
Even just like hearing you talk about that, it's almost like you can taste it.
You lit up, by the way. When you said that, you lit up, and you can tell that really drives you.
Yeah.
How can you remember that?
I think I'm gonna start printing some pictures. I have pictures of like people enjoying the ice cream and like stuff like that. I wish I could have like the Harry Potter moving pictures.
So you know the how you're saying you have these fun names for your ice creams?
Mm-hmm.
What if you had fun names for your processes?
Oh, I love that.
Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to just pick it up right where we left off. So we will be right back. Support for this podcast comes from Adult Study Hall at adultstudyhall.com. Adult Study Hall is the ADHD-friendly body-doubling co-working community for adults with ADHD, just like you and me. It's free for the first week to try and only $19.99 a month after that. When you sign up for Adult Study Hall, your membership will include access to our 24/7 drop-in room. You'll also get access to our weekly guided sessions that we call Adult Study Hall Plus or ASH Plus. So if you are looking for a productive and supportive community of like-wired brains to help you tackle your daily tasks and projects, look no further than adultstudyhall.com. Whether you need real-time accountability in our 24/7 drop-in room or guided and facilitated sessions with more structure to jumpstart the next thing on your to-do list, we'd love for you to join us. It really is a place where adults with ADHD can get together and help each other stay focused and motivated, and where we all belong. What are you waiting for? Join us at adultstudyhall.com and start doubling down on your tasks and projects today. Try it free for the first week, and it's only $19.99 a month after that. Jump in and join us and see how much more you can accomplish with others who just get it. And come work with us. That's adultstudyhall.com. Support for ADHD Rewired comes from our patrons over at ADHDrewired.com/Patreon. We want to thank John N. for becoming a patron this week over at ADHDrewired.com/Patreon. Thank you so much for your support. Perks for becoming a patron include getting ad-free episodes of this show for just $5 a month. Once you get signed up, you can get those ad-free episodes in a private podcast feed in your favorite podcast player. And I just recorded a 1.5 minute video video showing you how to do that. It is on our Patreon page. If you're looking for a taste of group coaching, then consider becoming a patron at the $25 a month level and join me every fourth Tuesday of the month for our monthly coaching call on Zoom. That's every fourth Tuesday of the month at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. But if that's not in the budget right now for you, or you know you're unable to join us every month, but you still want to hear the tips and tricks we'll be sharing, become a patron at the $10 a month level, and that will give you access not only to our ad-free episodes, but it will also give you access to the audio recordings of our monthly coaching calls. That's also included in that same patron-only podcast feed. It's RSS magic, and I don't even understand how it works. It just does. I really am so thankful for all of our patrons. No matter your contribution, I am really grateful for all of your support. If you're not a patron yet, but you want to join the Patreon community and get some extra perks, and if you're in a position to do so, you can support this show going over now to ADHD-rewired.com/Patreon and join us. Perks start at just $5 a month, but you can share any amount that makes sense to you. That's ADHD-rewired.com/Patreon. And thank you so much. All right, we are back. The hot seat is still smoldering here, so let's keep it going. All right, so the writing of these manuals, there's lots of ways to do this, and one of the things that over the last couple of years, because this is something I've been trying to do as well, write all the processes, because there's especially in an online business, there's 1,000 small little things that we do on a repeated basis, right? Last year when my previous assistant decided to turn in her resignation, it was okay, so I had 3 weeks to get Lisa, my current assistant, trained up. And it's all right, my training is as robust as what's been documented, right? And so there was a lot of documentation that was needed. And one of the stories I told myself for quite a while is that I'm not a good writer. I don't know how to do this. I need someone else to come in to do this for me. When my back was sort of against the wall and I'm oh crap, I have to do this. I need to do this. I need to do this right now. What I discovered is, while I definitely won't say that I enjoyed writing any of the processes, I discovered I was actually kind of good at it. So I'm wondering if you have had a similar experience in this, not fun, but good at it.
I'm good at it. It just feels never ending. That's the thing, is that I just never feel I don't know when it's going to end. I did a lot of not manual writing, but I did in my past job. I used to work in IT. And so I did a lot of trainings. I had to be the one to write those kind of things. So I think I know I can, because I know I'm the one who does the stuff, but I feel, I don't know what it is exactly where I dread it. I feel it might be the time. I feel maybe it's that I could be, no, because I feel I could be doing the thing instead of writing the thing, but no, the point is for me not to do the thing anymore. So that's not it. But I do get some resistance for sure. Sometimes I don't know how long this is going to take. Is it going to be right? Is it, what? Maybe it is that it's not that I don't think it'll be good, but will it be good enough for somebody else to duplicate?
What if it's not good enough?
I don't know. To do it again? Fix it?
So let's kind of play this out. So you got this process document, right?
Uh-huh.
And you have an employee at one of your locations who's doing this process, and they're getting frustrated because they're this part doesn't make sense. What would you want them to do?
To have a way to give feedback and to tell me to fix it themselves, provide suggestions. What do you think it should say?
So
what would make sense?
So you want to be able to allow the people who will be using the processes to have a mechanism to give feedback to improve the processes.
Yes.
So that sounds like a sort of a escape hatch there for perfection, right?
Right.
You can go absolutely for the good enough if you emphasize as part of the culture of your business is welcoming feedback.
Yeah.
Right. Because if someone does something a better way than what you're currently doing it, as a business owner, I would want to know that, because I would want to then implement that across other settings.
And then you're creating psychological safety for them to be able to give you feedback. You're creating buy-in because they're part of the process. There's all kinds of benefits with that I think are pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if your past experience with writing manuals is perhaps kind of coming into play of what it should look like. Because I know, like with my background in HR, doing SOPs and getting really involved in those kinds of processes. And then when I tried to do it for my business, I thought that it had to look just like that. And I would get very hung up on even the aesthetics of it, more so than like done is better than perfect, or doing the sloppy first draft, or, any of those types of things. So once I realized that I was doing that and able to kind of let go and just more brain dump and go through the process, it was definitely helpful. So I wonder if that's coming in because you do have that prior experience of something that looks polished, so to speak.
Yeah. And that's not something I thought of, but it is a feeling I had that why does it look like this kind of feeling? Because you're right. It did have to look a certain way at my previous job.
Am I intuiting an aversion to the idea of when we write drafts?
Yes.
You
I
want to
am
write
not
it and it
and
be
be done. Yep.
So because I kept hearing you say never ending. And then we started this whole thing out with, I don't know what done looks like.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if you create a picture in your head of done, whether that is correct, perfect, whatever. It's just in that moment, that is what done looks like for this. And you stick to that, go through that process and reassess after that.
So yeah, I've never been a first draft kind of gal.
Mm-hmm.
Never understood it.
Mm-hmm.
Never cared for it.
Do you edit while you write?
Huh?
Do you edit
Oh, yeah.
while you? Yeah,
Mhm.
it's so painful.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I'll go back and read that a paragraph at a time. I'll go back, reread it over. And I mean, to me, rereading like 5 pages of what I wrote, come on. No.
And that may be where that never ending comes from,
Yeah.
because you're editing as you go.
Mm.
And then at some point you're drained of energy and you have to walk away from it and come back. I don't know if that's not much different than getting a first draft down and coming back and reading through. Do you start up right where you left off, or do you actually start when you come back to something? Are you reading the whole thing and then getting going again?
I read the whole thing and then get going again. Not a great.
So you are rereading your own stuff.
I mean, I guess it depends on how long it is. Like
Okay.
some of these things are, I'll probably read enough to get the gist. Like I'll read like halfway up the last paragraph. You're like, oh yeah, that's where it was. And then go back.
And you've already said you don't like doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're already implementing it and you don't like it. And so there's that extra additional dread coming up for you when you have to leave a project. And the whole thing that this started, your whole document was unfinished things.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm thinking too, when we go to like coming back to what it was that the Mastermind's about, which is the, finishing projects. If it feels like it's a never ending process, I can see where that would be overwhelming to like, I'm never going to finish this. And I'm thinking even with the gardening of looking at having, I'm going to jump on what Eric said about the fun names. Like my morning routine initially was a morning routine. And then I realized like, I need to have a routine where I'm only getting done a certain portion. Like I just need to do enough to keep myself and my family alive. So that was a phase. Well, my spell check changed it to party. And I was like, well, I'm changing that. I'm keeping that at a party. So it became my hobo zoot party, which is my son and I and our animals. So it's our hobo zoo party in the morning. And that is just that part of my morning routine. So I'm wondering if these processes, if there can be phases or parties or whatever, so that you really are looking at it as a process versus a project that needs to be finished, that it's a little more fluid than that.
Instead of first phase, first scoop.
That's a good one.
Yeah. So do you have anywhere or you've listed the processes that you think you need to write out?
I don't think it's robust enough, but I do have a running list of things that I do want to write out. Yes.
If you spent 1 hour to don't get into the actual creating of any of the processes, really just like think about the different areas of the business and try to flesh out what are all the things that you think you would need documentation for. Because if you think about it, like if at some point you want to be able to sell your business, like what you're selling is your processes.
Right.
like
Right.
some delicious processes, right? So spitfire for just like a minute here. Like, what are some of the things that you think you need to create for processes?
Opening duties, closing duties, recipes, each one of the items, how to use the equipment, how to break down the equipment. If we're going to an event, what kind of an event, if it's a selling event, if it's a free event, if it's a catering event, all of those have different packing lists for those kind of events. Employee handbooks, what you can't do, where, say it's hot oil. So, precautions around being safe around oil, things like that.
And I'm guessing that there are other food-based businesses that have already done this.
Yeah.
How do you access that?
So I do have some friends that I can reach out to.
Is
That I
there an
can,
agency also that you have to be approved by, have an audit done on those things that have templates around this or have checklists?
not
No?
not like no, not for my specific things, no. Like a
Oh.
lot of the stuff is specific to how I function, getting batter, how to make the batter, how to dip, fry, dry, dress, cut, all of that. The only thing that I would be able to have like assistance with is like cleaning. That's really where like food safety, so food safety wise. So like cleaning, washing hands, things like that. Yes. But the nitty-gritty of the details, all mine.
Gotcha.
I'm just going to reflect how when Eric asked you that question and you started to answer it, like you were in flow. And it was really like you could tell you knew exactly the different types of events and catering. And is it free? Is it that? And you said start and close. I'm wondering if you can think, and I'm going to keep coming back to the processes because I know the manual is important, but I also know that you were looking overall at how to finish tasks or projects or things like that, or come back to them. I'm wondering if you look at your projects the same way you're looking at, let's say I'm, opening and closing for the day. You have those processes if your tasks are like that. So what I'm thinking is if I'm working in a 2-hour time block, I've got my 10 minutes, my opening duties. And then I have my business open. I'm doing my functioning duties. And then I've closed the business and I've got my ending duties. I just wonder if your passion for what you do could somehow, you could pull that into what you're doing. I have goosebumps into what you're doing because I can see your passion. It's so palpable.
Yeah, that's a good perspective. I like that. I like that idea.
And did you say, is there anywhere where it's like these ideas are, even if they're in multiple places?
Yeah, they are in multiple places. There's some in Asana, and a lot of them are in a random OneNote. And that's part of the thing too. Is like Kat said, is the process. It's where do I dump everything, and how do I remember to go back to look at that thing and organize it. So I think that's one of the first things I want to do is one place for everything.
Think about the process that we do with our weekly and daily planning.
Mm-hmm.
That first step, the
Oh,
triage, right?
yeah, yeah.
So if you were to triage the different parts of what you have created, what would the actions be to do that?
If I were to triage all the places that I've created, like all my dump spaces.
Yeah. So if your first step is, all right, I got to consolidate this so it actually is in a single place.
Mhm.
What is that process of doing that? What are you
Um,
opening? What are you searching for?
Thankfully, I use one email for all of my business stuff. So it would be just searching through anything that is logged into that email about, list, process. I think I have some buzzwords like closing and cleaning and recipe that I can search through to find those lists.
As I'm thinking, the idea of creating processes is, I think, inherently boring. I
I
mean, it
mean,
just like, but if you can, or maybe it just feels boring, the idea of,
no, it is. No, I'm
Yeah.
agreeing with you. Like I'm like, oh yeah, it is.
so,
And I'm saying, no, I love it, by the way.
but you are not boring. I mean, you've invented things that nobody ever has done before because you're like, I wonder what I can do with this. How could you take that approach to creating these documents and this solidifying and capturing your knowledge base?
You're right. I'm making this really boring, and it doesn't have to be boring. Like it does not have to be boring. Like it is boring. It's a boring thing, but it doesn't have to be. And I think that's what it is that I'm making it feel like work. I mean, it is work, but it doesn't have to be sad work.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious following that question is there a gut instinct about how you would write these processes if you just sat down and started one? Or are you looking at it like there's a way, there's a future template out there and I need to meet that even though I don't know what that looks like?
Um, I kind of get when you asked, the first thing that came to mind was this feelings I sometimes get that like I'm the only one doing this, and I'm not. I know that my things are unique. Yes, nobody maybe has made the ice cream in the way that I had, but a food business isn't new, and I think that sometimes I kind of get the feeling that that while I'm writing the process, that it'll change and things won't be the same for some reason. I don't know where I got that from,
Mm.
but yeah, that was really random.
Are there components of what you do that for a future employee would make more sense if it was either video or pictures or just written out?
Yes.
Okay. I think when you're going through each component of what you're trying to create documentation for, have part of the template of what you're filling in. Like, all right, do I have the visual assets? Do I have the video assets? Do I have the stuff that's just needs to be written out, right? And so if you can create what do I need for each of these things, and then you're creating this template for what do I need to fill in? Like when we've been working on updating all of our curriculum stuff, I created a whole project board just for the curriculum. We broke it up by week, we broke it up by slides, by handouts, what phase of editing it was in, who has seen it, who needs to look at it again. Like, so looking at the process from the very beginning, because if I didn't have start with that, I would have just been like, when I'm in the mood to do something to make it better, I'll kind of jump in the middle and maybe finish a part of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
I feel like an overarching theme of like this whole thing is the way I process projects in general. Like for all of the things. How do I start? Yeah.
How do you currently manage a task list?
That's such a great laugh.
Okay, so right now, and this is something I was working on with my A team, is how to do one thing, right? Because I feel like I do different ways of tasks. But the last one and this has been working for me, is I have a to-do dump list. So it's my dump truck, I call it. My dump truck of tasks. And so if there is anything that I need to do, I put it on the to-do dump. And when I go to plan or to do anything, I go through my to-do dump and see what I can take from it and do it. Now, I did use Asana for my business, but I think I had trouble managing two different systems, even though there were about two different parts of my life. Maybe that's a whole nother deeper issue is as an entrepreneur and separating like life and work and, really keeping that separate. And I think that's why I felt like it was okay to have it in two separate spaces, but I don't think it's working out well for me. So maybe I can have a to-do dump for my business and maybe call it something fun, like, I don't know, melted ice cream. But yeah, that is a struggle is the management of tasks.
So the thing that I like about Asana is you can have a master to-do list, and items from that to-do list can be generated from a specific project list. So you can look at it so if you have a project board called, whatever creative name you want to call it for your processes, and so you have this big board that has all these tasks and subtasks for your processes, and then you're also assigning that to your task list if you're putting dates on them, which I would definitely recommend doing because that keeps the project moving. Right. So when you're looking at, all right, what do I got to do today? When you're looking at your today sort of master list, it's pulling from those particular projects. So you're sort of seeing, all right, what do I need to focus on today? And when you need to kind of wrap your head around like the bigger, like, where am I in this project? Then you just open up that project board and then you're only seeing tasks related and relevant to that particular project.
My first thought was like, wow, I got to learn how to do that.
Is that learnable?
It's to learn to use Asana?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a learnable thing.
What was your second thought?
Where do I find that?
All right. So if I asked you that, what would you say?
I would say to Google it, but I have a thing about, and maybe that's me making it harder than it needs to be. But like I'm a rabbit holer. And so like when I say Google something, I'm like, do I trust this person? Is this process okay? Like I would rather have like a recommendation, and maybe that's what I should do instead. Does anybody have a
Is there
recommendation?
possibly a more direct route than Google where you can go to someplace on the computer for Asana specifically?
To learn to use Asana?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know because I think I'm just thinking of what my what I want the learning style to be, which would be a visual, like click here, do this, do that. If there's an Asana tutorial, maybe I could go to
I'm
Asana and
guessing
say that.
I'm guessing that Asana has a YouTube channel with those. I will say
You don't say.
I'm not an Asana fan. I know
Okay.
Eric really likes it. It's a little too granular for me, but I think if it like finding what works and sticking with it. I was going to ask you with your other, you said you've got them separated. What type of system are you using now? And is that working for you?
I use reminders on the iPhone app. Sorry, the reminders app on the iPhone. Now, the caveat for me again is that I do not have a Mac. So it is sometimes a struggle to like navigate in between that because I plan on my computer. Like I sit on my computer and I do the whole thing, but I don't have a Mac. I was anti Mac because I was an engineering student. So none of the stuff worked back then. So I was anti Mac, but now I don't need all that fancy software. So I really want one. But yeah, I use the reminders app for everything else. And it does work. It does work because it is a place that I go to when I'm planning, and I look at all the things there that I can pull from there to do. And if I want to, I can put dates. And what I like about it the most is that I can talk to it. I can talk my watch or my phone. I could just say, hey, because I do have a problem with that. It's just not capturing the task I need to do. And then so that's one of the reasons why I decided to stick with it that way is, hey Siri, do this thing.
I have a
Nope,
question
sorry,
that's kind
Siri.
of leaning into strength-based discovery. And that would be in the past, what sort of processes have you been able to develop for yourself that maybe you didn't even realize you were doing it and it turned into a process that were successful for you? And what did it look like?
My more recent process is like meal prepping and grocery shopping. And I know that's not related to the business, but that's just the one that came off the top of my head. And I mean, to the earlier point, it was trial and error is what was working and what wasn't working. I tried what I thought would work. And as I went along, I found little points that I can improve.
Describe for us a little bit of what it does look like at this point.
So I have it starts on the week before. So on Thursday, I have a standing meeting with somebody from my A team to do weekly planning. And a part of that, I start with meal prep because usually that's where my time disappears with meal prepping. It's just the kitchen. So I do that first. So I look up what meals I'm going to make. I identify how many meals we need. So, how many lunch and dinners do we need? And then I make a grocery list. And if I can, I will do like a pickup order. Like, if it's like at Aldi or, Publix, Walmart, whatever, I'll make a cart. And then on Friday, I do grocery shopping in the morning when it's nice and quiet. All the shelves are stocked. And I'll go grocery shopping on Friday and then cook on the Monday.
How have you captured all those steps? Or are they things that you captured them at first to follow and now they've become routine?
I have some questions in my planning time. So I ask what meals am I making, and what list, and that's really the only place I have a step is there.
Do you feel that you have a done moment with this process that actually is ongoing?
No, I never feel done with that. I don't know. I think because it's a
But is it working for you?
Yeah, that's what I was about
yeah,
to
it's
ask. It sounds like
working.
it's working.
It's
So,
working. Yeah, it's
yeah, what
working.
is bringing about I really don't see it done, yet it's working. What is
Right.
it that is different with that experience to another one that you try, like your gardening, where you say it feels never done?
Well, I guess because when the food is done, it's done. So maybe That's how I get it.
Maybe you're
So-
seeing it like
Yeah.
steps are done.
Yeah. Yeah.
So is done seeing somebody else work the process?
Yeah. Yeah. Done will be, yes. Done will be being able to give it to somebody. If we're back to the manuals, right? If the
Mhm.
done will be able to, yes, done would be able to hand it to somebody and say, do this. Can you do it? Yes.
Well,
Great.
Do you ever hand over
Mm-mm.
this cooking thing? Like if you're
Mm-mm.
out of town or something and somebody else,
Out of town. What's that?
can you visualize what that would look like? Could
Yes.
whether your husband would want to or not, could that person step in, do your process for a week while you're out of town so that your son is still fed and your family has, that kind of routine going on still?
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Now back to the food. Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Is there anyone that you could have as a sort of like, hey, like a guinea pig, like, hey, let me give you the this process and can you just see if you have any questions? So like a tester
Yeah.
of the processes as you're moving along through it.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's important to see that you have implemented processes and that you can, and that there's still parts to it where I still have those statements of, well, it never feels done, yet it feels successful. It feels like it's working.
Right.
You had made a comment when you're talking about your sort of meal prep stuff
Mhm.
about, say, I go to the grocery store Fridays
Mhm.
because the shelves are stocked.
Shelves are stocked.
You have a clear why.
Yeah.
Are there processes that you do, but you're not clear as to why?
Yeah, I'm sure there is. I can't think of them off the top of my head, but I'm sure there is because, like I mentioned, of the change thing, right? That if I don't know why, then it has to change, and then that is another thing.
I would encourage, as you're sort of fleshing all these different things out, one of the sort of things to fill in for each process is why we do it this way.
Yeah, I like
Right.
that.
Because I think if you don't know, then like that's, you can be getting into analysis paralysis because you actually don't know why we're doing it this way.
Yes, I love that because I actually have tried grocery shopping on a Monday and I hated it, and I was like, never again, never again.
Okay. I was just looking on my computer. Now I'm a Mac person. You can go to iCloud.com, log in with your iCloud account
Mhm.
and look at see your reminders, like stuff from the browser. So you actually don't need a
Really?
Mac for that.
I thought that okay. Oh, what about the Notes app? Because I remember
Yep,
trying it and there
all
was
of-
one of them. Okay.
So I'm looking right now, and I don't use the iCloud because I don't have to. But you have mail, contacts, like everything that is iCloud program is available through the cloud web.
Okay.
The cloud web. That sounded like I'm 95,
fine.
and I just learned about the internet.
Are you on the line?
Okay. I want to take a quick break here. I know we're about an hour in here. This might be a two-parter, but I feel we have some other stuff I want to kind of dig into with you, if that's all right. So let's take a quick break and we will be right back. We're going to end today's episode right here. This mastermind is far from over, but this episode is. Watch your podcast feed when we drop part 2. This is Eric Tivers. Thank you for listening and congratulations for making it to the end. ADHD reWired is more than just a podcast. We are a community focused on learning, growing, and connection. The website is ADHD-related.com. You can find time-stamped summaries and additional resources for each episode. Apply to join our free and secret Facebook community. Learn more about our award-winning intensive online video-based coaching and accountability groups. Join the Adult Study Hall virtual co-working membership community. Find all the other podcasts on the ADHD reWired podcast network. Sign up for my email newsletter to get exclusive content that you won't hear anywhere else. And use the search tool to find episodes on specific topics. You can do all of this at ADHDrewired.com. While you're there, click on the Patreon button. If you are a regular listener, consider making a monthly contribution by becoming a patron. If you are able to financially support my work, it would mean a lot. This show is free to you, the listener, but it's not free to produce. Plus, patrons get cool perks like ad-free episodes and access to recordings of coaching calls, and $25 a month patrons Then join me once a month for a group coaching call. You can follow me on Twitter at Eric Tivers. You can like our Facebook page at facebook.com/ADHD rewired. If you're a coach, therapist, or related professional, connect with me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/Eric Tivers. Subscribe to ADHD Rewired on YouTube to see selective interviews and other videos I've made. Podcasts change lives. You can make a difference in someone's life by spreading the word about this podcast. Mention it in your online communities on Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, or wherever you hang out online. And be sure to share it with your friends, family, your therapists, your coaches, doctors, siblings, parents. And if you, your coach, therapist, doctor, or ADHD support group leader would like a pack of podcast postcards to hand out, you can request those at the website, ADHDrewired.com. If you are a member of CHAD, ADA, or any other ADHD support group, please be sure to tell them about this show and all the shows on the ADHD Rewired Podcast Network. You can even show them how to download it on their phone. And if you really loved this particular episode, please hit share on your podcast player. I'm only one person, and I do count on you to help spread this message. One of the biggest things that you can do to support this podcast and help other people discover it is to leave an honest rating and review on Apple Podcasts or any other app that supports reviews. And don't forget to hit subscribe so new episodes are automatically pushed to your favorite podcast app. Looking for more ways to listen and learn? Get a free audiobook and a 30-day free trial at Audible by going to audibletrial.com/ADHD rewired. Here is my list of must-listen-to audiobooks updated July 2021. Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. Attached by Amir Levin and Rachel Heller. Atomic Habits by James Clear. The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. Crucial Conversations by Carrie Patterson. The Coaching Habit by Michael Stainer. The Body Keeps Score by Bessel van der Kolk. Rest by Alex Sujong Kim Pang. The 5-Second Rule by Mel Robbins. Make It Stick. The Science of Successful Learning by Peter Brown. The Productivity Project by Chris Bailey. Meditation for Fidgety Skeptics by Dan Harris. Change Your Questions, Change Your Life by Marilee G. Adams. I always recommend to my coaches and admin that they read that book. The One Thing by Gary Keller, a required reading for all of our coaching group members. Procrastinate on Purpose by Rory Baden. The 4 Tendencies by Gretchen Rubin. The Art of Asking by Amanda Palmer. And if you're looking for something a little bit more magical, I have fallen in love with the Harry Potter series, and the narrator, Jim Dale, is amazing. And of course, if you haven't yet boarded the Brene Brown bus, all of her stuff is great, starting with Gifts of Imperfection, Daring Greatly, Rising Strong, and The Power of Vulnerability. And if you're an entrepreneur or leader, be sure to check out her book, Dare to Lead. Do you have something that you would like to share? Click on the podcast tab at ADHD Rewired. Click the button to be a guest at the top of the page and schedule a 15-minute interview. This is Eric Tivers, reminding you to keep learning, growing, and connecting. Self-care is not selfish. No matter what you get done or don't get done, you are still enough. And no matter how hard it feels, we can do hard things. And we don't need to do them in the hardest way possible. Thanks for listening. I'll catch you next week.